I was on a walk, just me and God, and I was pouring my heart out, telling him what my kids needed, how I needed him to show up for them, what I needed him to do. And he stopped me, not gently. He said, "They are mine before they are yours." And in an instant, everything I thought about my job was shifted. Today, I'm sharing what it cost me to actually believe that. And the moment he proved it was true. Hey friend, welcome to Beyond Believing. I am Katie Ann, a certified life coach, single mom of 5, and a woman called to walk alongside divorced Christian women as they rebuild their lives with him. Today, we are talking about something I have not fully shared before. It was early on in my post-divorce season. I was still in the thick of figuring out what co-parenting was going to look like, what the kids were navigating, how they were doing spiritually, and I had a lot of opinions about all of it. I was out walking, which is where most of my honest conversations with God happen, and I was praying. Except if I'm being truthful with you, it was less a prayer and more a presentation. I was telling God what my children needed. I was telling him how I thought he should handle it. I had a plan, I had concerns, and I was laying them out in great detail for him. And God, gracious, patient, but firm, stopped me mid-sentence, simply with this statement: "They are mine before they are yours." That was it. 5 words. I stopped walking, took my breath, and I felt 2 things simultaneously: completely humbled and completely at peace. Because somewhere underneath all the worry and the managing and the prayers that were really instructions, I already knew it was true. I had just forgotten. Here's what that sentence did. It reminded me that the same God who knows me intimately, specifically, by name, knows my children the same way. Psalm 139 doesn't just apply to me. He knit them together. He ordained their days. He sees them, every single one of them, not through my lens, directly. And here is where it gets practically important, because this is not just a beautiful theological idea. It changes the job description. Deuteronomy 6 tells us what our actual job is. Impress these commandments on your children. Talk about them when you sit, when you walk, when you lie down, when you rise up. The job is to point, to teach, to model, to guide them toward him, not to be him for them. There is a difference between being a faithful steward of your children and believing you are personally responsible for their spiritual outcomes. One is your calling, the other is a weight God never asked you to carry. I had been carrying the second one. And I know I am not alone in this, because if you have been through divorce, especially one where you feel like you are the only one fighting for your children spiritually, the only one keeping the foundation steady, the only one who is showing up consistently, it is so easy to slip from "I am stewarding their environment" into "I have to make sure they are okay." Those sound similar, but they are not the same. One is faithful, one is exhausting, and one is never meant to be your job. I want to be honest with you about what happened after that walk. The peace was real. The rebuke was real. But circumstances don't just shift because your posture does. And the years that followed were a test of whether I actually believed what God had said, or whether I was only willing to surrender when things were already okay. They were not already okay. I am not going to share the specifics of what that season looked like, but I will tell you what it felt like to navigate co-parenting when the relationship is tense, when communication is strained, when you are trying to stay surrendered in your posture and the circumstances are not yet reflecting that back to you. I grew up watching my own parents after their divorce, and I am sharing this not to assign blame. I have more compassion and understanding for both of my parents now than I ever could as a child. I see them with new eyes. But the truth is, the experience of watching two people who could not find peace, could not be in the same room, could not offer their children a sense of safety in the space between them, that shaped me deeply. It was one of the reasons I held on in my own marriage as long as I did. I knew what it cost children to live in the aftermath of two parents who stayed in contention. I had lived it. I did not want to give that to my kids. So when I found myself on the other side of divorce, carrying that history, I was hyper aware. Maybe too aware, because awareness can slide into control if you are not careful. But there was a moment, I remember it clearly, when I was out walking before the end of my marriage, carrying this very specific fear that my children were not going to know who God was, that I was going to fail them in the most important way. And I was telling God all about it. And he simply said to me, they do not have to have the same experience you did. Not a formula, not a timeline, just a word, a promise, and I held that. Lamentations 3 says, his mercies are new every morning. Great is his faithfulness. I read that differently in a long season than I did before one. Because when you are in the waiting, when you are surrendered, but the proof has not come, faithfulness is not a feeling. It is a decision every morning to believe what he said over what you see. Isaiah 49 says, can a mother forget her nursing child? Even if she could, I will not forget you. I have engraved you on the palms of my hands. He says that about us, and it is just as true about our children. He has not forgotten them. He is not dependent on the circumstances of your co-parenting situation to reach them. He is not limited by what is or is not happening in the other home. He sees them. He is with them, even there. That is what I had to come back to in the waiting. Not the circumstances, the character of the God who already knew their names. I want to tell you about a moment I did not arrange. One of my children had gotten hurt, badly enough that he needed stitches. And I called my ex to let him know. He came, and something was different. I cannot fully explain it except to say that the tension I had grown accustomed to navigating, the weight that had been present in shared spaces before, was no longer there. We were both just parents in a room, focused entirely on our child. And our child got what he needed and what I always wanted for him, not what I had managed or planned or prayed into a specific shape. Just both of his parents, present and calm, together in the way that mattered most in that moment. I had been praying for that since our split, but that was not the only moment. There was a school meeting where we sat at the same table, a logistics conversation that resolved simply, without friction. Small things, ordinary things, the kind of things that used to feel impossible. And one day it hit me. My children are getting something different than what I grew up with. 4 years out, and they are already living a different story than the one I was so afraid of writing for them. Not a perfect story, not an easy one, but a different one. My parents, after 40 years, still cannot offer that to each other. And I do not say that with judgment. I say it with grief and with grace, and with the full understanding that I know what it cost. My children know it too, in their own way, but they are also watching something else unfold in real time. God promised me on a walk that they would not have my experience. And this week, this month, this ordinary Tuesday, he is keeping that word. Not because I engineered it, not because I said the right things or handled every moment perfectly. I did not. I had to surrender the outcome. And in the space that surrender created, God moved. Psalm 46:10 says, "Be still and know that I am God." That is a posture, not a passive instruction. Be still while he works. Know while you wait. Trust before you see. That is what the hospital room was, not the absence of difficulty. The presence of God moving in the space I finally stopped trying to fill myself. So let me tell you what your actual job is. You are not your children's savior. You never were. And the sooner you release that role, not because you don't love them fiercely, but because it was never yours, the freer you all will be. You are the steward of the environment in your home. That is your authority. That is your calling. And it is enough. What does that look like practically? When your children come home, you create a space where they are safe to feel whatever they feel without you loading it with your narrative. You listen, you love, you do not pump them for information or use their words to build a case. You just receive them. You pray over them, not telling God what to do, but surrendering them back to the one who knew them before you did. You stay steady because steadiness is not passive. It is one of the most powerful things you can model. They are watching you trust God in circumstances that are hard and uncertain and not fully in your control. That is a lesson no classroom and no sermon and no perfect family structure can teach them as effectively as watching their mother live it. Joshua 24:15 says, "As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord." That is your house, your declaration, your authority, not his house, yours. You cannot write his chapter. You can write yours. And here is what I want to close with. In 2 Timothy 1:5, Paul writes to Timothy, and he credits his faith entirely to two women, his grandmother Lois and his mother Eunice. There is no father mentioned, no intact family structure, no co-parenting arrangement that checked all the boxes, just a grandmother and a mother who were faithful. And from that faithfulness came one of the greatest ministries in the New Testament. Friend, your faithfulness is enough, not your perfection, not your ability to control outcomes, not whether you can get your ex to cooperate, your faithfulness in your home, pointing your children toward the one who already holds them. He stopped me from saving my kids because he is already doing it, and he will do the same for yours. I went out on that walk trying to save my kids. I came home knowing they were already held. That is the whole thing. That is the whole episode. If you are carrying what was never yours to carry, the weight of their spiritual outcomes, the fear of what is happening when they are not with you, the pressure to compensate for something that is outside of your control, I want you to hear this. You are not failing them by not being able to control everything. You are teaching them by watching you what it looks like to trust the God who sees them, knows them, and has plans for them that are not contingent on what their parents did or did not do. So straighten your crown. Remind yourself who put it there. You are a daughter of the King, and so are they. And he has not taken his eyes off a single one of you. Have a great week, my friend. If this episode stirred anything in you, would you share it with one woman who needs to hear it today? She might be carrying exactly what you were carrying before you pressed play. And if you are ready to put down what was never yours, to do the real work of rebuilding your identity around who God says you are, book a free call at coachkatieann.com/call. That is where Selah Healing begins. Find me on TikTok and YouTube at Coach Katie Ann. All the links are in the show notes. Thanks for being here. I'll see you next week.